Welcome to 247 Real Talk. I'm your host, Julian Perry. It's a pleasure to be here with you for another episode of the 247 Real Talk podcast. I hope you had a great week to start off the 2024, and that you set a lot of things in place and working towards making 2024 a great year. Last year, I recorded one episode where I talked about the decision that my wife and I made, mostly my wife, to homeschool our kids. And now that we start in 2024, they've officially, she's officially begun the program with her. She started at the beginning of the year. So I just want to give you some insight and some thoughts as we start off this new adventure in our family, hoping that it will encourage those who are on the fence about the decision, and you'll get an idea of what we're doing and the journey towards it. So sit back and relax, and I'll be right back with you. So welcome back to 247 Real Talk Podcast. Again, it's a pleasure to be here with you. This week, I'm just going to give you a small or short update on what it's been like for the beginning of 2024 and that full venture into homeschooling with our two kids. I think I mentioned to you in the previous episode I recorded on this subject that I was a skeptical parent. Not really skeptical, but let's say unsure parent. But I have a wife who is very determined and who does a whole lot of research and makes sure that she puts one foot in front of the other when she's making decisions that affect, especially decisions that affect our family. She has been convinced from day one that homeschooling is the way to go. Can't really argue with her too much because, give me one sec. It seems like we're getting some feedback here. Can't really argue with her too much because it feels like when you look at what's going on in schools, I think it was only a week ago that there was some sort of shooting somewhere in a school. We've looked over the years and watched the bullyism that has gone on and the number of students that have gone to extremes of taking their own lives and things like that because of what goes on in the schools. The teachers are overwhelmed. They're depending on where your school is, the budgets, the schools are underfunded. So you get teachers of a lesser caliber. Some don't care. Many don't care, depending on where they're teaching and what the atmosphere is like and the challenges they have with the students and the support that's lacking to help them to be successful with those challenges. We looked at my son, who, as I told you before, appears very normal, acts and behaves like a normal kid, but when you test him, he's high on the autistic spectrum. If you spent enough time with him, you would recognize that the challenges are there. And when we looked at what was happening in school, we realized that the progress was minimal, and he was moving up in grade. And it was kind of scary because, this is the kind of scenario where you encounter grown people, adults or teenagers entering adulthood who can't read properly, who can't spell properly, who can't write properly. When in his first elementary school, they had a great system that worked. That it was a mixed classroom, and there were additional teachers and instructors and assistants who dealt with the kids with the challenges. And the challenges sometimes are simple, right? Where there are, doctors determine what these kids need. Like if you have a test that's 30 minutes, the kids who have these challenges need an extra 15 minutes because it takes them longer to read and decipher what they're reading and then do the work. Sometimes, like my son is brilliant in math, So they found that if he had someone there to read the math question to him, he could do the math real quick and get it right. In this elementary school that he was going to now, they didn't seem to have the same resources. They weren't following his IEP. They weren't following the mandated medical recommendations. And so we watched him and realized that this is not the same child. He's falling behind. He's frustrated. Then there was a difficulty with him focusing in an environment with a classroom with a lot of kids and a lot of things going on. So the doctors prescribed medication, which he's been taking for a few years. They tried the medication in different medications and in different forms, meaning these medications have a release characteristic to them. Some are rapid release, some are slow release. So the one he's been taking for quite a while now is one where he would take it before he would leave for school. His bus used to get here around 7:45 in the morning. And then at lunchtime, somewhere between 12:30 and 1, the school nurse would give him a second tablet. That we noticed allowed him to focus in busy environments, um, with some side effects. And I'll explain. Yeah, let me give you those side effects first. Because while he was under the medication, he would focus. He would do his work, but he would be moody. He would be introverted. He would shy away from any sort of activity or people. Then when he came home, still being under influence of the second doses of the medication, he would, um, get his. You have to get his homework done right away, because these medications act like, I don't know, crack, cocaine, or whatever that I've heard where people come down, right? So he would come down off the medication around 5:36 in the afternoon, and that would be catastrophic. He would get completely isolated and introverted, and he would start to cry uncontrollably for the longest while. His mood would change. This really bothered us as parents. It bothered my wife, especially. She looked at it. And what we tried to do during that period of time is on the weekends, we tried to not give him the medication. One of the things we noticed too that the medication acted like an appetite suppressant, so that during the week he wouldn't eat. And on the weekends, when we didn't give him the medication, he would eat out the whole house. So here we are. The decision is made. My wife has taken the time to put a board up, and she each day there's the classes. They do the core classes, which is English, math, social studies, and science, and then they do elective classes. So let's talk about the daily schedule and the benefits. They used to wake up in time to get on the bus at 7:45 in the morning. Now at 7:45 they're asleep. They wake up around 10 a.m. They get up, they can stretch, they can whatever, they can have breakfast. And then they can start their classes, say around 11. By between 2 and 3, they're done. And that's with the classes and breaks. Today, for instance, my daughter was so excited about the homeschooling, she got up extra early. And by the time my son got up, she was done with her classes for the day, all of them. So imagine she got up early by choice, I guess around 7. She took no breaks. She just was just eager to do this. And by 10 o'clock, her school day was done. Here's some of the things that we've been able to do so far. We've been able to having them home. And again, let me step back for a minute and set this up as you need to understand. Number one, they're homeschooling. They're sort of self-maintaining, but an adult must be around, obviously. So I understand that this can't work for everyone, right? You have to have someone who is at home. My wife happens to have a remote job, 100% remote. You also have to have someone who's invested in the children, right? Who their presence, at least the children know they have to go do their work. The eagerness for doing it and the happiness we've seen in our children since they started homeschooling is amazing. I mean, simply amazing. My son, who would be distracted, the one with the autistic challenges, sits down, does his work. And when I say work, so for us, we've enrolled in an online school or online classes that are geared towards homeschooling. They're accredited, and they do similar work that the school does. They have to follow because you remember when you're doing homeschooling, and I don't want to give you a false understanding of how you get there. You have to notify the school. There's documents you have to fill out. You have to go to the district's board of education. You have to get their sign off and their approval. There's certain at the end of each semester. There's certain I guess documents that you have to submit to show that the children have met the educational requirements. If you do enough research, you'll find out that many homeschooling kids are 2 grades ahead of their peers who are in public school or even private school or who are in an instructed school system. Why? Because the time that they do their schooling, they are so focused that they're way ahead. My daughter is a grade ahead of her class already. Now, she was probably a grade ahead of before she does because she has that brilliance, but the work that she does is soon going to be heading to 2 grades above where she is. Now, my son is doing all his schoolwork. One of the things we noticed was as a part of his what do I want to call it? His challenges. There's a real struggle for him to write properly. He wouldn't write on the line. His letters looked like a 2-year-old baby writing. And spelling was a challenge. It's amazing because my wife took them out of school on December 8th. I think that was the last day. And during the Christmas holidays, she sort of eased them into it by giving them a little bit of work every day. You should see my son write. How beautifully he's writing on the line. You should see him spell using syllables and figuring out spelling the words on his own by himself. He was always good at math, but you just see him go through a math problem. The fact that there's no one towering over his neck, the fact that there are no kids around who are pushing the pace forward, the fact that he can work at his own pace, and if he doesn't understand something, needs to go over it 10 times. The online class allows you, the one that they're doing is not live. You have instructors that you can submit questions to, and they'll get back to you within a quick period of time. There is a class you can also do online, a course or an online school that's live. We're testing the waters with the current course or current curriculum or not curriculum, but current school that we're using. Tutoring system. If we find that later on that we want to change to a different one, we will. But right now, this seems to be working. If the child doesn't understand something they're doing and they need to go over it 10 times until they get it, they have that luxury. They're not keeping the class back. They're not being rushed by the teachers. They're not being ridiculed by their peers as being slow or being this or being that. No one is breathing down their necks. They're enjoying school. I can honestly tell you that with all the challenges my son faced with the medication and coming home every day from school, and I'd ask him, how was your day? And he'd look at me and say, I had a bad day. He hasn't had a bad day since. He is the happiest I've ever seen him since he's been going to school. And my daughter is the same, even though she doesn't have any of these challenges and she's just gifted naturally. Here's what she's be able to do. She doesn't have to compete with other kids to learn the things she wants to learn. So she got a tablet. She found online piano classes for free. My wife hooked her up with, I think, one of them too. And each day she spends X amount of time following the online class, using my piano, and she's teaching herself to play the piano. These children are learning their skills and their potential beyond the confinement of school because they can do it within normal hours. And they can relax and feel rested each and every day. Now, what you have to be invested in is making sure that they have the social aspect as well. So this was something I was worried about, and my wife assured me that's not a problem. And she's right. There are a lot of resources, a lot of groups out there of parents with homeschool kids who are looking to join with other groups for social recreation. Right now, this evening, as I'm recording this podcast, my kids are at a social event for 2 hours with other kids who they see every single week. So it's like being at school. They're all friends. So you make sure that you're fulfilling that social aspect too, which is that social dynamic, which is really important, right? You don't want to isolate them. So then my wife decided, she's going to start her own group. And each month, each week, they're going to do something somewhere. I think last week they met up with the other kids and they went ice skating or roller skating. I think once a month she's going to do a big trip, meaning they're going to go somewhere to some museum with all the kids. Now, in her research, she found out, for instance, that a lot of museums have programs or they allocate for homeschool kids where they will receive homeschool kids as a group and allow them to come and be a part of the museum and be a part of the experience. And these things are all over New York and all over the country as far as I've heard. So if you're willing to do the work and look for the resources, you'll find that I won't say hundreds of thousands, I'm going to say there's millions, a few million people across the United States who are experiencing the same with homeschooling and who are seeing their kids grow to their fullest potential. When I think back about how conditioned we have become as human beings to follow the traditional format of a school building, to go to college, to put ourselves in hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan debt, and still be at the mercy of someone to come out with a degree and come out and, way less educated sometimes than we should be for what we paid and what the piece of paper says. My hesitation about homeschooling is gone. My son, who was scared of doing a lot of things, remember autism, he now gets up in the morning and with my wife standing by, just visually supervising, he makes his own breakfast. Now, what do you say? Of course, you can make your own breakfast. No. He gets a frying pan if he wants eggs. He knows how much oil to put. He knows to turn on the stove. He knows how to crack his eggs, put them in the pan, season them, and make his own breakfast. The skills that they are learning outside of the confinement of the school system is amazing. They're free to learn and free to go to their fullest potential. And void of the school shootings, void of the bullyism, void of the systemic racism, void of being segregated or being chastised because of who they are, what they look like, or the fact that my son has challenges. There's no bias because they're in our home. And when they go to social events, they're going to kids just like themselves. And when I say just like themselves, not other kids with autism. I mean, the group that my son goes with, I think there's a few other kids who have autism, but they have it similar to him. So they behave normally, but they have autistic challenges, right? They score on the spectrum, high on the spectrum. But you should see them get along. You couldn't tell. Verbalizing everything, being polite and kind to each other, learning real values, and socializing in a way that my son never would at school. There was a problem at my son's school where the teachers would say at recess, he would sit by himself. He would sit by himself because I think initially he might have tried to be a part of the kids playing. And because of his autism and the fact that he has social challenges, they kind of isolated him. Right? They kind of stepped away. They kind of excluded him because his behavior was different. He was either all the way up here or all the way down here, right? So he's either really excited or subdued. So eventually, he was looking for something else to do at recess because he didn't want to go outside and play with the kids anymore for fear of how he would be accepted or not accepted. Look, I know that when I'm saying this to you, there's many parents who will get it. There are many parents who might be emboldened by what I'm telling you and want to try it, and I encourage you to. I also understand that this is not for every parent. There's a discipline that's required. The discipline is making sure that you follow up and the kids have are following the right studies each day. Pay attention because I'm not sure which day, but they have tests that they do as well. They have to pass tests. Not tests as the public schools gear them these state exams and all that, but tests that just sort of review what they had to make sure they got it. The parents have to be involved. You have to pay attention to their growth and know that when you see them excelling, open up a bigger world to them. The online schools allow the sky's the limit. So you're not limited by, like, we have kids who go to school, let's say kids in fourth grade, and they're so brilliant they're doing, and I know a couple of kids like this. My daughter is one of them. They're in their class and they're so far ahead of the class, the teacher started complaining that they're distracted. When you ask them, why are you distracted? Because, I finished the work in seconds. What else? I have nothing else to do. And schools won't advance them less like that. So they sit there stifling the brilliance of this child when they're yearning to absorb knowledge. Again, I know that some parents will say, I would love to do that, but we can't because our environment, our home environment doesn't allow it. Meaning there's no one, both parents are working, right? And there's no one to supervise them. And I get it. And I honestly feel for you if you can't, because then you're at the mercy of a school system that I honestly can tell you is so involved in politics and money and school boards and who's giving the biggest donations and favoritism and systemic racism and bullyism, and even among the teachers and the parents there's bullyism. So your kids who are subjected to this, especially in this day, maybe not so much when we were kids, because things seem to be a lot different, and there were different morals and ethics that were involved then. And a teacher when I went to school was a teacher who understood things differently than now. But anyway, the point being, and don't get me wrong, there are brilliant teachers out there. There are very good teachers out there. What I find is the same school system that is oppressing the children, subjecting the children to all these unnecessary things, is the same school system that's doing it to the teacher. Teachers who have to go out on their limited salaries and spend money to buy supplies to their kids because there's no budget to do that in the school they work for. Teachers who get reassigned or snubbed because they take an extra interest in trying to help a child and recognizing something with specific children, trying to help them grow, and it doesn't follow the lead teacher's decision as how to run things. We're in a day and age where the world is presenting more challenges than it did 50 years ago or 100 years ago. We're in a day and age where we have to make sure that when we do leave this place, we leave our children equipped to deal with the life and challenges that were far different than the ones we faced. Even sports, my daughter plays soccer, my daughter swims, okay? My son plays games. They all get, if you do this right, they all get all of the things they get in school. A sport, my daughter plays the piano, the sciences, and they're happy, they're content, and they're safe. Safe from so many things. I used to hear my kids come home, and I'm trying to wean them off of some of it, saying certain things that they didn't even know the meaning of, but they picked it up in school from other children who were allowed to say these things that are inappropriate at their age. We had gotten to a point where we were no longer raising our kids. The kids would leave 7 o'clock in the morning, come back at 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The school system was raising our kids. The teachers were raising our kids. Whatever values exist in those environments are who are raising our kids. So I'm happy and I'm blessed that we are fortunate enough to be able to do this for our children because my wife works remotely 100% from home. And because she was so fierce in going after what was best for our kids. I want any of you who are thinking about this, who have the opportunity to really put some thought into it. You may find a skeptical spouse, and if you need convincing them, contact me and I'll put you in touch with my wife and she can give you the information you need. We want to promote this because we're finding that this is helping a lot of families, and it's very helpful to families that live in oppressed neighborhoods and have brilliant kids who are looking for a way out. You can email me at podcast@247realtalk.net. Very soon I will reveal to you, and I'll put it in the notes in the YouTube podcast and in the audio podcast too, the link to YouTube's channels that will be coming up that is geared towards my 2 children and their homeschooling. It will give other children the ability to see what their days look like, because we will have videos of their parts of their days, how they're learning, what they're doing. It'll give them a chance to see their happiness, to see the different things that we're able to expose them to when they go out. My wife will do videos of the different places they go so you can see the exposure they're getting. And it will give your children a chance to interact with them, to put them as kids in a place of comfort as well. We're going to be doing a lot to advocate for this in social media. It's taken us a little time to ramp up because I have the podcast channel. I have another YouTube channel. My wife has a lifestyle, gardening, lifestyle, overall lifestyle YouTube channel. And so it's a lot for two parents. But we are determined to give our kids the best. When a society doesn't care about them, we as parents do. So I urge any of you and all of you who have this ability to think about it carefully. It's not for everyone. You must have the ability, you must have the time to invest in it, and you must have the conviction that it's right. If you are interested, I can tell you, put one foot in front of the other and take the plunge. So as we start 2024, I'm letting you know how we've started this. In terms of the layout, two kids are in two different rooms. They have the computer. I bought them like 31-inch, 32-inch monitors. They each have their own computers, their headsets, their speakers, and they're doing their two separate classes because they're in two different grades. And they are so into this. You've got to see it to believe it, and soon you'll see it on their YouTube channel. In the meantime, like I said, email me at podcast@247realtalk.net for any questions, or throw the questions up on YouTube under the video. I'll get a notification. I'll respond as soon as I can. As we start 2024, I wanted to share this journey with you, share my excitement about what I've seen, and share this from the beginning with you. So during the year, periodically, I'll give you updates so that you can follow along with this journey with my family. From next week's episode, I'll go back to the social issues and the challenges of our lives as human beings, as adults, as citizens of this country, and as members of this planet. But I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share this and my excitement about this with you. And I thank you for listening. I thank all of you for your support. Those of you who send me messages, those of you who make sure every single week you give me encouragement. I thank you so very much. Please like, subscribe, and even if you don't have a comment, share. Especially episodes like this. The first episode I did homeschooling was shared quite a bit, both on the audio and the video. Share it till you can't share it anymore. Every single person you know with children, teenagers even, parents who might be having challenges with kids when they go to school because they're messing with the wrong crowd in school. And they're trying to pull their kids back and they didn't know this option existed. Yes, it does. Reach out to us. We will help you with as much information as we have and point you in the direction you need to go. Join me in this effort as a parent, as a member of society, as a human being, to make it better for our next generation. As always, I thank you so much for being a part of your lives, a part of your homes, and for you for supporting this podcast and allowing me this opportunity to speak with you each and every week. Until we do this again next week, have a great week ahead. I know there's a lot of violent weather around the country, rain and snow, so please do take care of yourselves. Make sure that you are safe, and please take care of each other.